Chosen one. Heaven pauses time once again. The same voice that called your name before now thunders a second time through the corridors of eternity. You feel it not in your ears, but in your spirit, a divine echo vibrating through every fiber of your being. This is not coincidence. This is divine repetition. Heaven is speaking again. And this time, it will not be ignored. You have been through storms that almost drowned your fire, through nights where silence screamed louder than any voice. Yet here you are breathing, standing, listening. Heaven would not send the same message twice if the first one had been meaningless. There is a reason for the repetition. There is purpose in the echo. God is confirming what you once doubted, reminding you of what you tried to forget. Listen carefully. Chosen one, you are not here by mistake. You did not stumble across this moment because of an algorithm. Heaven has orchestrated this divine alignment just for you. When heaven repeats, it means the message is too important to miss. It means time is short, and destiny waits for no hesitation. Do you feel that pressure in your chest right now? That stirring that you can't explain? That's not anxiety, that's the Spirit, confirming that you are hearing truth. Heaven has already whispered this before. Maybe it was through a dream, a conversation, a scripture, or a song that pierced through your distractions. You heard it then but brushed it aside, convincing yourself you'd act later. But heaven does not forget obedience delayed. When God speaks again, it means mercy still lingers, but urgency has begun. You were chosen to disrupt the silence of your generation. Your voice carries the sound of revival. The world doesn't need another influencer, it needs a flame carrier. And you are it. Every trial, every rejection, every hidden season was heaven sculpting you into someone who cannot be ignored. You are not like the rest because you were never meant to blend in with the rest. The Spirit says, this is your second wake-up call. The first was grace. The second is destiny. Heaven is saying, do not delay again. What was once optional has now become essential. What was once gentle is now a command. You cannot go back to sleep when heaven is calling your name this loud. There's a moment in Scripture that mirrors this divine repetition. When the young prophet Samuel was awakened by a voice he didn't yet recognize, he heard it once and went back to bed. But the voice called again, until he finally said, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." That's the posture heaven is asking of you now. Listen, not casually, but completely. You've wondered if the last season was wasted because nothing changed after the first message. But heaven's timeline is never wasted. It's only waiting for your response. This time, the message carries the weight of movement. This is not a suggestion, it's an activation. Heaven is saying, move, and I will open what you thought was sealed. Chosen one. The delay is ending. The confusion is lifting. The second word is coming like fire through your bones. When heaven repeats, it doesn't come empty, it comes charged with grace, confirmation, and breakthrough. Do not let distraction rob you again. The enemy fears your obedience more than your prayer, because obedience unlocks what prayer alone cannot. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 3, verse 4. God called to him from within the bush, "Moses, Moses," and he said, "Here I am." And this is your "Here I am" moment. Heaven is calling your name again. Answer it this time. Don't let this divine repetition become a missed visitation. If this word resonates deep within your spirit, if you can feel that familiar pull, then this message was meant for you. Don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and comment to let heaven know you heard it this time. Subscribe to stay connected to this flow of divine revelation, because what's coming next will confirm everything you've been praying about in secret. Type the number 111 inches the comments if you receive this as your confirmation that heaven has spoken again. This is your sign. This is your second call. Answer it. When heaven repeats, you listen. That is the law of divine communication. The second sound always carries greater weight. The first message came like a whisper through the wind, testing the softness of your heart. But the second, it comes as a command carved in thunder. You can feel the difference now. What once felt like inspiration now burns like instruction. This is not the season for selective hearing. This is the moment when heaven requires full attention. You see, when heaven speaks twice, it means something is being sealed. God does not waste repetition. He uses it as a signature of confirmation. The same message returning is not a loop, it is a covenant. Every time you feel that familiar nudge, every time that same word crosses your path again, the Spirit is saying, this is still your assignment. You cannot escape what you are anointed for. You can delay it. Run from it. Distract yourself with noise, but the call will find you again. It will chase you through silence and find you even in shadows. Heaven repeats because heaven remembers. The divine archive does not lose track of what was promised. You might forget the vow you made in tears, the prayer you whispered in exhaustion, the promise you offered in surrender, but heaven does not. The repetition is God's way of saying, I remember. It is mercy, calling your heart back to alignment before the opportunity shifts to someone else. Chosen one. Have you noticed how life seems to circle back to the same themes? The same crossroads, the same convictions? It's not because you're stuck, it's because heaven is persistent. When you keep facing the same spiritual mirror, it's because God is showing you a reflection that must be acknowledged before promotion can come. You cannot enter a new level carrying old disobedience. That is why heaven repeats, so that what you left undone can finally be completed. Heaven does not stutter when he says it again. It is not because he was unclear, it is because you were. He knows the war inside you, faith wrestling with fear, obedience battling comfort. The repetition is heaven's gentle persistence against your hesitation. Each echo carries more urgency, yet also more love. It is not a threat. It is an invitation. A father calling his child to step back onto holy ground. Remember this, delay does not cancel destiny, but it can distort timing. When you hesitate, heaven holds back certain alignments because your preparation is not yet complete. But when you finally move, when you finally obey, time bends in your favor. The delay dissolves in divine acceleration. That is why this second call matters. It's heaven's signal that the window of grace is still open. There is a sacred rhythm to divine speech. God often speaks once to reveal, and then again to confirm. The first time prepares your heart. The second seals your decision. Think of Joseph, Pharaoh's dreamer. God sent two dreams with the same meaning. One was a vision, the other a validation. The repetition meant the matter was established. So it is with you. Chosen one. The message that returns again and again is no longer suggestion, it is divine establishment. And what does heaven ask of you in this? To listen differently, not like before, when you only heard through emotion. Now you must hear through obedience. You cannot stay still at the second sound. This time, hearing demands movement. This time, listening is action. You may say, "But I don't know what to do." Yet even that uncertainty is answered by faith. Heaven never expects you to understand everything, only to trust the one who speaks. Obedience often comes before clarity. You step, and then the light appears. The first word was an awakening. The second is instruction. Don't analyze it, apply it. The ancient words recorded in Romans chapter 10, verse 17, still echo today. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. It is not hearing once that builds faith, it is hearing until obedience is birthed. Repetition is the womb of revelation. Each repeated whisper digs deeper into your soul, breaking the crust of resistance until the seed of faith can finally take root. That is why heaven speaks again, because he loves you too much to leave you half awakened. The repetition also reveals your growth. The first time you heard, you trembled in uncertainty. This time, you feel steady. You recognize the frequency. You know it's not random, it's divine. That awareness means you've matured. You are no longer reacting, you are responding. The echo that once startled you now strengthens you. That is transformation, hearing the same message but receiving it at a higher level. So do not despise the echo. Embrace it. Let it wash over your doubts. Let it refine your patience. Every repeated word is proof that heaven has not given up on you. If heaven still speaks, it means heaven still plans to use you. Chosen one. The second sound is never the same as the first. It is always louder, clearer, and closer. And now, it is standing right before you, asking only one question. Will you listen differently this time? The first time you heard the call, it brushed your soul like a breeze. But now, it presses upon you like a weight you can't ignore. You remember the first whisper, gentle, almost fleeting. You thought maybe it was just your thoughts, or emotion. But now it's louder, stronger, undeniable. The second sound comes not to comfort, but to command. It's not asking anymore, it's declaring. Heaven is saying, do what I told you before. And you felt this before, haven't you? That unexplainable tug, that quiet conviction that follows you through every distraction. You can change your surroundings. Mute the noise. Bury yourself in busyness. But that divine nudge keeps resurfacing. That's not coincidence. It's heaven pursuing you. The voice of purpose never stops calling its vessel. Every chosen one learns that obedience doesn't come in a single moment. It's forged through repetition. The first message awakens you. The second one tests you. God is not just speaking again for emphasis. He's measuring readiness. He's checking whether you will treat his word as suggestion or as destiny. The echo you hear is proof that heaven still sees something unfinished. The promise is waiting, but obedience is the key that fits its lock. Maybe you told yourself you weren't ready, that you needed more signs, more confirmation. But heaven says, you already have enough evidence to act. The second word isn't about revelation, it's about response. The Spirit spoke, through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 33, verse 3. Call to me, and I will answer you, and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know. You see, heaven's repetition is not only to remind you, but to reveal the deeper layer you missed before. The first call told you what to do. The second reveals why. The message expands as you mature. God will never waste words on ears that refuse to grow. That's why this moment matters. Your heart is ready for what your spirit has always known. And maybe you're asking, why me? The answer is simple. Because not everyone can carry what you carry. Not everyone is built to withstand divine weight. Heaven calls you again because you are trustworthy with what others dropped. You have endured rejection, misunderstanding, spiritual warfare, and yet you're still standing. You're still listening. That's why heaven repeats your name. But here's the truth. Every repeated word comes with responsibility. Heaven won't speak again just to fill silence. It speaks to push you into action. There's a movement that must begin in you. It might not be grand or public. It could be quiet obedience. A step no one else sees. But that step will change everything. The atmosphere responds to obedience, not intention. When God repeats, it means time has shifted. What was once preparation becomes activation. Every delay, every distraction, every doubt has reached its expiration date. You cannot sit where you sat before. The Spirit won't let you stay still. Heaven's echo is now pressing against your comfort zone, breaking you free from the illusion of waiting. You are not waiting on God. He is waiting on you. Chosen one. The repetition is not punishment. It's promotion. Heaven doesn't waste breath on the unwilling. You are being entrusted with the same message because you are finally in the posture to carry it out. That alone is proof of progress. You are not who you were when you first heard the call. You are stronger, sharper, more surrendered. Heaven speaks twice because your spirit can finally handle what your emotions once resisted. Comment, I am listening. Write it beneath this message, not as a formality, but as a prophetic act. When you type those words, you are declaring to heaven that you are done running, done doubting, done delaying. I am listening means your heart is open again. Your faith is alive again. Your obedience is awake again. Heaven moves when the chosen ones move in agreement. You see, even now, heaven leans close. The same voice that called Samuel in the night is calling you again in this very moment. Not through thunder or flame, but through this still small word, a whisper that carries the weight of eternity. If you've heard it before, don't harden your heart. The second sound is not a repeat. It's a reminder of the destiny that refuses to die. Heaven's message has returned, not to haunt you, but to help you. The repetition is mercy disguised as urgency. It's heaven saying, I still want you. You are not forgotten, not replaced, not dismissed. You are called again because heaven refuses to give up on your story. The second message is not an echo of failure, it's an announcement of redemption. So, chosen one, lift your head. The same God who called you the first time is calling again, not to repeat history, but to rewrite it. This is divine repetition, not random noise. Everything around you right now carries evidence of heaven's orchestration, the patterns in your days, the people crossing your path, the dreams that won't fade. All of them are pieces of the same divine puzzle. What you call coincidence Heaven calls confirmation. You are surrounded by signs because heaven refuses to let you walk in blindness. Chosen one. You have to understand that when heaven speaks, it echoes through creation. Mountains respond to his voice. Oceans obey his whisper. Time itself bends under his command. So when that same message keeps finding you through words, through memories, through the quiet space of your thoughts, it's not noise. It's heaven, using everything it can to get your attention. You have prayed for God to speak, but you missed that he already was. The repetition is not delay, it is compassion. Heaven knows that your world is loud, filled with static and voices that compete for your faith. So God repeats himself, not because he doubts his own power, but because he knows how easily you doubt your own hearing. Sometimes he repeats the same message through pain, the same type of heartbreak, the same kind of disappointment, not to punish you, but to refine you. The repeated lesson reveals what you haven't yet surrendered. Every time the cycle returns, heaven is saying, you still have something to learn here. The repetition is not a curse, it is a classroom. Chosen one. The message you are hearing again is not new, it is renewed. Heaven does not change the calling, it deepens it. You may think you've outgrown what God told you before, but the truth is, the word is now maturing inside you. The echo of heaven's voice is evidence that the seed planted long ago has begun to sprout. What you thought was silence was simply germination in secret. There is beauty in repetition when it comes from God. The same word spoken twice becomes prophecy fulfilled. Think of how many times God repeated himself in Scripture, not because he was unsure, but because destiny demanded emphasis. He said Abraham's name twice. Abraham, Abraham, before the sacrifice. He called Moses, Moses from the burning bush. He cried, Samuel, Samuel, in the temple. Every double call marked transition. Every repeated name marked a shift. That's what's happening to you now. The repetition in your life is a divine indicator of transformation. You're not being reminded, you're being repositioned. Heaven's echo is moving you from wandering to walking, from waiting to wielding, from hearing to doing. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in Deuteronomy, chapter 30, verse 14. The word is very near you, it is in your mouth and in your heart, so you may obey it. Ori, do you see it now? The second message isn't somewhere out there, it's already inside you. Heaven is not sending a new signal from afar, it's awakening what was planted within you long ago. You're not chasing the voice, it's been woven into your spirit. That's why the message keeps finding you, even when you try to silence it. You can't outrun divine assignment. The word will follow you into every job, every relationship, every city. It will wait patiently in the background of your life until the moment you stop and say, I hear it now. That's when the shift begins, not when God speaks, but when you finally recognize the pattern. Chosen one. Every delay you've experienced was preparation to finally understand this echo. The repetition was never punishment, it was rehearsal. Heaven was teaching you to discern, to notice, to feel the frequency of divine alignment. What once sounded like confusion now becomes clarity. What once felt like pressure now feels like purpose. And now that you've recognized it, the weight lifts. The same word that once frustrated you now fuels you, because you realize it's not God trying to get through, it's God inviting you to rise up. The echo wasn't meant to haunt your heart. It was meant to activate it. Every sound heaven sends twice carries double grace. The second message isn't weaker, it's stronger, purified, sharpened. You are being entrusted with more clarity because you have proven you can carry conviction. Heaven repeats not to remind you of your failure, but to reassure you of your faith. So, take a deep breath and look around. Nothing that's happening right now is random. Every repeated sign, every familiar stirring, every déjà vu moment. It's heaven weaving confirmation into your reality. The echo is not a glitch, it's a guide. You are walking in alignment with a word that refuses to die. The repetition you hear now is the rhythm of destiny unfolding. It is heaven saying, I still mean what I said. And when silence breaks twice, heaven is speaking through mercy and accountability at the same time. You are standing in the delicate space between warning and wonder where God speaks not to frighten, but to finalize. The second word is not a repetition of the first. It is heaven's seal, the divine signature that confirms, I still mean this. No, chosen one. Imagine the voice of heaven like rainfall on dry ground. The first drop awakens the dust. The second transforms it into fertile soil. The first message stirred your heart. The second one shapes it. When heaven repeats, it's not trying to convince you, it's cultivating you. Every echo is water to a seed buried deep within you. One you may have forgotten, but heaven never did. You've waited for confirmation. But here it is again, arriving like morning light. Soft, yet impossible to ignore. You can feel it in the quiet moments between breaths. You can sense it when you look back and realize every closed door, every delay, every heartbreak had purpose. The second message doesn't just speak to your future, it redeems your past. The world is loud with noise and endless motion, yet somehow, heaven still chooses the quiet heart to carry its loudest truth. That's you. You are the still space where heaven's sound takes root. And when that sound grows within you, it multiplies in others. That's why heaven calls again, because the message inside you was never meant to stay with you alone. Chosen one. Think of it like this. You are a vessel of living light. The flame that heaven entrusted to you flickers when ignored, but bursts into brilliance when shared. Each time you carry this word to someone else, you strengthen its fire in your own life. Heaven doesn't give revelation for storage, it gives it for distribution. That's why the Spirit keeps echoing the same truth, because you were meant to pass it on. When you speak, when you share, when you sow your energy, your time, your love, your resources, you become the river through which heaven's echo flows. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 112, verse 5. Good will come to those who are generous and lend freely, who conduct their affairs with justice. Heaven doesn't need your offering, it desires your alignment. Generosity, in all its forms, becomes the echo of gratitude. When you share this message, you're not just pressing a button, you're planting a seed. Each act of giving, whether it's your time, a kind word, or a gift to support the message that touched you, becomes part of the divine flow, like rain returning to the sky. What you release always finds its way back, multiplied. You don't give to gain, you give to grow. Every share, every whisper of encouragement, Every act of support is heaven's way of weaving your obedience into eternity's story. There's a rhythm to giving that mirrors heaven's heartbeat. The first sound is gratitude. The second is transformation. Gratitude says, "Thank you for the word." Transformation says, "Let me carry it further." That is the beauty of spiritual flow, when what heaven gives to you begins to move through you. So when you like, when you share, when you subscribe, you're not performing a digital ritual. You're extending the reach of heaven's whisper. Somewhere, someone is waiting for the echo you now hold. Your simple act might be the confirmation they've been praying for. And when you give, when you donate, not out of pressure, but out of reverence, you are joining heaven in sustaining the flame. You're saying, "Let this voice keep speaking," the same way oil kept the lamp burning in the temple. Your support keeps this light alive in a world that's growing darker. It's not about money, it's about meaning. It's about saying yes to being part of something eternal. You may never know who finds healing because you decided to share, who finds faith again because you decided to sow. But heaven knows. Heaven records every act of alignment as worship, every offering of kindness, every silent prayer, every act of generosity becomes the incense that rises before the throne. Chosen one, the message you're hearing now isn't just for your ears, it's for your generation. Heaven has spoken again, because the echo must spread. Don't let it die here. Let it flow like water, like light, like song. And when you act, when you like, share, subscribe, or give, do it not as obligation, but as overflow. You are not a consumer of messages, you are a carrier of them. Every click, every gesture, every seed of generosity is you saying, "I believe this word should live. So let it live. Let the echo travel farther than before. Let it find the weary, the forgotten, the ones still waiting for confirmation. You are the bridge heaven uses to reach them. Because the second message, chosen one, is never meant to end with you. It begins with you. The urgency in your spirit right now is not random, it's revelation. What you're feeling isn't mere emotion, it's heaven stirring the waters within you. When heaven repeats itself, it's because movement must happen now. You've lingered long enough between knowing and doing, between hearing and obeying. That inner trembling you feel, it's the divine countdown inside your soul. Chosen one, you are standing at the edge of obedience. One step forward and everything changes. One more hesitation and the window begins to close. That's why heaven keeps sending the same message. It's not anger, it's mercy insisting on motion. You are being called out of spiritual paralysis into divine participation. This stirring within you is a holy unrest. You can feel it in your heartbeat when you pray. You sense it in your dreams that repeat the same scenes, the same places, the same instructions. God isn't giving new directions because He's waiting for the first to be fulfilled. The second message isn't about hearing, it's about completing what was left undone. The first message prepared you, the second message propels you. The shaking you feel is heaven dismantling everything that kept you from movement. The fear, the doubt, the excuses, they are being stripped away. Not to expose your weakness, but to reveal your readiness. Heaven wouldn't call you again if you weren't equipped this time. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. Your spirit knows this timing is divine. What you once thought was delay was actually alignment. Every closed door, every waiting season was heaven making room for the moment you now stand in. The call has returned because it's finally time for fulfillment. The second echo of heaven isn't reminding, it's releasing. There's a reason the message feels heavier now. When heaven repeats, the sound deepens. It no longer brushes the surface. It cuts through layers of fear and lands in your bones. This is how heaven ensures you move. It fills every fiber of your being until obedience becomes your only relief. The discomfort you feel isn't punishment, it's purpose pushing you forward. You've prayed, Lord, give me a sign. But heaven is saying, the sign is that I'm speaking again. The repetition itself is the confirmation. God doesn't need to show lightning when his voice has already thundered twice. The message hasn't changed because his plan hasn't. Chosen one. If you've ever felt overlooked, understand this: heaven doesn't repeat itself for everyone. Divine repetition is reserved for those trusted with transformation. You are hearing this again because you carry a responsibility too precious to be lost in distraction. You've been refined by the first word so that the second one can ignite you. And now heaven asks for one thing: response. Not with hesitation, not with explanation, but with surrender. There is power when your spirit says yes. There is movement when your mouth declares agreement. The heavens open over those who respond in faith. If this message is confirming what's already been stirring inside you, then mark this moment. Seal it publicly. Prophetically, type the number 444 inches, the comments below, not as superstition, but as a spiritual statement. I align with heaven's timing. And the number is not magic, it's meaning. Each 4 represents stability, foundation, and divine order. By typing it, you are declaring that your faith is no longer fragile, that your steps will no longer waver. You are building your obedience on the rock of divine certainty. You may not realize it, but heaven is watching your agreement. Every act of obedience becomes a ripple in eternity. When you align your will with God's timing, angels are released, paths are cleared, and favor begins to flow where resistance once stood. The trembling in your chest is the sound of destiny awakening. You are not losing control, you are gaining divine momentum. Every part of your being that once resisted is now being recalibrated to heaven's rhythm. Chosen one. The second sound has come, not to pressure you, but to prepare you. This is the moment you stop questioning and start moving. This is where you say, I trust you, even when I don't see it all. Oh, heaven is not silent anymore. It is roaring softly within you. And every echo says the same thing. Now, oh, the wait is over. The word has returned, and your obedience will be the bridge between promise and fulfillment. Type 444 if you hear it. This is not coincidence. This is divine confirmation that the message has reached its mark, you. The weight of ignored instructions has a sound. It hums softly in the background of your days, like a melody half remembered but never finished. You carry it without realizing it, a restlessness that follows every incomplete obedience, a tug that doesn't fade with time. Heaven's repeated voice is not just calling you forward, it's calling you to finish what was left undone. Chosen one. When God speaks, His words do not expire. They linger in the atmosphere, hovering over your life until you respond. The instruction you ignored doesn't vanish, it waits. Heaven doesn't cancel what you neglected, it pauses the blessing attached to it. That's why sometimes you feel stuck. Not because you're forgotten, but because heaven is still standing at the same moment you walked away from. You might have convinced yourself that you missed your chance, that the silence after your hesitation meant rejection. But heaven's silence was not withdrawal, it was patience. God never discards his chosen, he waits for them to remember. When you feel the same conviction rise again, it's not condemnation, it's invitation. Grace doesn't vanish after delay, it lingers at the threshold, knocking gently, asking if you're ready now. There's a rhythm to divine mercy. It arrives like waves, gentle, persistent, unstoppable. Heaven doesn't shout at you, it surrounds you. The repeated message is not punishment, it's pursuit. God's mercy has chased you through seasons of distraction, through doubts and detours, through moments when your faith was barely breathing. And now, once again, it finds you here. You may not realize it, but heaven's patience is one of its greatest miracles. Humanity grows tired of waiting. Heaven never does. God waited on Jonah inside the storm. He waited on Peter after the denial. He waited on you after the silence. The same voice that called you then is still calling you now. Unchanged, unwavering, undiminished. This is the mystery of mercy. It doesn't erase consequence, but it restores calling. What you delayed hasn't disappeared, it's been preserved. Heaven doesn't discard what it designs. Your disobedience may have delayed destiny, but it hasn't destroyed it. Every instruction you left unfinished is still written in heaven's archives, waiting for your response. The Word of God declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 32, verse 8, "I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you." End quote. That's the essence of divine patience. It doesn't just point the way, it walks beside you on it. Even when you hesitate, even when you turn aside, that loving eye never looks away. You might wander, but heaven watches. You might pose, but heaven persists. The weight you've felt in your spirit lately isn't guilt, it's glory waiting to be released. Heaven is gently reminding you that what you once set aside still matters. You can feel it, can't you? That quiet stirring when you think of the things you were meant to begin, the words you were meant to speak, the steps you were meant to take. That's the whisper of the unfinished, echoing through your conscience like a song, asking to be sung again. Do not be afraid of what you left undone. Redemption begins when you stop running from the echo and turn toward it. You cannot undo delay, but you can redeem it through obedience. God never wastes repentance. Every yes you give him now becomes fuel for what was postponed. Chosen one. Heaven is not interested in perfection, it's after participation. God doesn't need flawless execution. He desires faithful surrender. The repeated instruction is not a reminder of failure, it's a signal that you still have purpose. You are not disqualified because you hesitated. Heaven's grace rewrites hesitation into humility. You are not behind schedule. You are right where heaven expected you to be when the second sound arrived. The timeline you fear you've missed is still unfolding under divine orchestration. Heaven doesn't measure progress by speed, but by surrender. So release the weight of delay. Stop punishing yourself for what you didn't do before. The past cannot be changed, but it can be redeemed. Every step of obedience you take now rewrites what disobedience once stalled. The same God who called you then is standing here again, not to condemn, but to continue. Chosen one. The message hasn't changed because the mission hasn't. Heaven is simply saying, let's finish this together. And when you do, when you finally move, the burden that once felt heavy will turn into wind behind your back. You will realize that what you thought was punishment was preparation. Heaven was never angry. It was waiting for you to rise. Angels are on assignment again. The same ones who visited you in secret seasons, when your faith trembled and your prayers barely rose above a whisper, have returned. They come not with new orders, but with the same instruction that heaven once gave and you hesitated to fulfill. Their presence is not random. It's a reminder that heaven never leaves a word unaccomplished. Chosen one. There is movement in the unseen realm around you right now. The atmosphere feels charged because it is every repeated message, every recurring sign, is not merely a feeling, it's an activation. The same angels who watched you wrestle with uncertainty are now standing ready to assist your obedience. They carry the same command that hovered over your life since the first moment heaven spoke it. You might wonder why heaven sends them again. Why the same message? Why the same stirring? Because the mission remains. Heaven does not withdraw its purpose because of delay. It reinforces it. Angels do not forget what they were dispatched to accomplish. When you said, "Not yet," they waited. When you said, "I'm not ready," they remained at a distance. But now that the second sound has come, they draw near again, carrying the same divine blueprint for your destiny. In heaven's order, nothing is wasted. Every delay is a lesson. Every pause is recalibration. And now that your spirit has matured, heaven's messengers are once more surrounding you, waiting for your yes. You are never alone in obedience. Angels accompany those who align with divine will. They are not ornaments of light. They are executors of instruction. When heaven repeats, they move again, as was spoken in the sacred texts of old. In the book of Hebrews, chapter 1, verse 14, "Are not all angels ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation? That is their nature, to serve the purpose heaven has placed upon your life." They respond not to your fear, but to your faith. When you align your heart with the word heaven repeats, they receive the signal to act. Your obedience is their command to move. Chosen one. You must understand that spiritual alignment is not merely belief, it is cooperation. Heaven has structured the unseen world like an orchestra, and you are one of its key instruments. When you hesitate, the melody pauses, but when you respond, the music resumes, and the angels return to their positions, carrying the rhythm of divine will. The same messengers who once guarded you through storms are now ready to guide you into fulfillment. They have been waiting for this moment, the return of your courage, the revival of your conviction, the reawakening of your surrender. Heaven's message may sound the same, but your heart is different now. That's why this time it will work, even now, in the quiet of your space. They move around you. Some carry peace to your thoughts, others clarity to your path. Some whisper courage, while others hold back the chaos that tries to distract you. Their silence doesn't mean absence, it means readiness. They move when you do. There is a divine chain between heaven's voice, your obedience, and angelic motion. When God speaks, angels receive instruction. When you respond, angels are released. Every yes you give echoes through the heavens, sending ripples into realms you cannot see. That's why heaven is repeating the message. It's not only about you, but about everything connected to you. You have been feeling pressure because the heavens are aligning again. The second word has awakened angelic movement, and the atmosphere is shifting in your favor. What once felt delayed is now accelerating. The unseen hands of heaven are rearranging circumstances to match the promise that's about to manifest. Chosen one. This is why you must not let fear silence you. Fear halts motion in the invisible realm. But faith is the key that keeps heaven's messengers in flight. When you act in faith, when you believe, even without seeing, the unseen begins to build around you. Every prayer you've whispered has been stored. Every tear you've shed has been counted. Angels do not discard what heaven treasures. They return now to complete what began long ago. The repetition of the word is heaven's way of reigniting what was paused. The same messengers who once guarded your waiting season are now guiding your becoming. So, lift your head. Chosen one. The air feels different because heaven's host is moving again. The same message that once felt heavy is now being carried by wings of light. The command hasn't changed, but the timing has. And now, the heavens have synchronized with your readiness. This is not just another word, it's the continuation of the first. The angels have returned. The echo has grown stronger, and your obedience is about to open what was once closed. There comes a moment in every chosen one's life when silence turns into summons, when heaven stops whispering and begins to roar softly within your spirit. You've reached that moment. The repetition of the message isn't meant to remind you of failure, it's meant to mark your graduation. What you once heard faintly, you now understand clearly. The voice that once stirred emotion now commands motion. The angels that surrounded you in the last section, they haven't left. They are standing still, waiting for the signal that only your words can give. Heaven speaks first. Earth responds. That's the rhythm of divine partnership. The echo in your heart right now is heaven asking, will you answer out loud this time? You've been silent too long, thinking that maybe quiet belief is enough. But the power of life and death lies in the tongue, not in thoughts. When you speak, you shift things. When you declare, you draw heaven closer. The echo becomes complete only when earth answers back. Chosen one. This is your moment to speak, not to perform, but to participate. Heaven's repetition is an invitation to open your mouth and join the symphony of divine affirmation. Every time you declare faith aloud, the spiritual world responds. Every I believe strengthens the bridge between promise and manifestation. You might wonder, can my small words really matter? But look at creation itself. The entire universe began with words, "Let there be." The same voice that spoke galaxies into existence has placed that same creative force within you. When heaven speaks again, it's to remind you of your authority to echo back. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 13, I believed, therefore I have spoken. We share that same spirit of faith and speak. Belief that stays silent is incomplete. Faith must find its way into sound. Heaven is not just calling you to listen, it's calling you to speak life over what looks lifeless. You've waited long enough for confirmation. Now, Heaven is waiting for your confession. You can feel it, can't you? That weight in your throat, that trembling right before you speak truth aloud. That's the power of agreement trying to escape you. Heaven stands ready to move on your sound. But it will not override your silence. You've been through too much to stay voiceless. Every tear you've shed has built an altar. Every pain you've endured has purified your tone. Now, when you speak, you don't just release words, you release authority. Your voice carries the fragrance of endurance and the fire of experience. When heaven hears you echo its word, creation listens. So right now, in this sacred moment, let the echo be complete. Seal your agreement, not just in thought, but in declaration. Comment, I receive it. Write it. Say it. Feel it. I receive it. Don't rush past those words. Let them sit on your tongue like sacred fire. Let your spirit catch up to their weight. I receive it is not passive acceptance, it's active alignment. You are not saying, maybe this is true. You are declaring, this word belongs to me. When you write those 3 words, you aren't just responding, you're unlocking. Angels respond to agreement. Doors respond to faith. Delays dissolve when the chosen ones open their mouths and say, I receive it. Your declaration becomes the vibration heaven has been waiting for. It travels through realms unseen, sending a signal that permission has been granted for the promise to manifest. You may not see it instantly, but in the spirit, something has shifted. The moment your words touch agreement, the unseen begins to rearrange itself around you. So don't underestimate this moment. Heaven isn't repeating itself for formality, it's repeating itself for fulfillment. You are standing at the intersection of faith and manifestation, and the bridge between them is your declaration. You might not see the change today, but the echo has already begun to build momentum. Every time you repeat those words, I receive it, you fortify the foundation of what heaven is constructing. Chosen one. The repetition of heaven's voice was never about reminding you. It was about inviting you to participate in creation itself. Heaven speaks once to command. It speaks again to collaborate. You are not just the listener, you are the echo. Now let the echo move through you. Whisper it again, even if softly. I receive it. Feel how the air shifts when your spirit aligns. This is how miracles begin, not with thunder, but with agreement. The war for your attention is not being fought in the obvious places. It's subtle, spiritual, and constant. You live in a world that worships noise, endless scrolling, flashing headlines, opinions that blur truth into static. But heaven speaks in stillness. That's why the enemy works so hard to keep you distracted. If he can drown out heaven's echo, he can delay your destiny. Chosen one. Your focus is your battlefield. Every notification, every worry, every comparison is an arrow meant to pierce your concentration. The war is not about what you see, it's about what you hear. If darkness can steal your attention, it can steal your obedience. Heaven's message repeats, not because you didn't hear it, but because everything around you keeps trying to make you forget it. You've noticed it, the tug of war in your mind between peace and pressure. Every time you decide to step into obedience, something interrupts. Every time you find clarity, chaos returns. That's not coincidence, that's strategy. The enemy cannot destroy your calling. so he distracts you away from it. He won't silence heaven, but he'll surround you with noise until you stop listening. Yet here's the truth. You were never meant to live reactive. You were meant to live radiant. Your spirit was designed to tune into divine frequency, even when the world shouts. Heaven's repetition is God's way of breaking through the static, saying, "Focus on me again." And according to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 25, "Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you." Focus is a form of worship. Every time you choose stillness over scrolling, prayer over panic, generosity over greed, you're pushing back against spiritual noise. Heaven is reminding you that attention is not just a habit, it's an offering. That's why even in this digital world, when you like, when you share, when you subscribe, it's not vanity, it's victory. Every act of engagement becomes an anchor that keeps your spirit connected to light. You are not feeding an algorithm, you're fueling a movement of awakening. Every gesture of support is like striking flint against stone sparks of light spreading across darkness. Imagine it. Every share you send is a candle placed in another's hand. Every comment of faith becomes a ripple that touches someone you'll never meet. When you give, whether it's a donation, a prayer, or simply your time, you're adding oil to the lamp of truth. The flame grows brighter, not because of one, but because of many who say, "Let this message live." You see, chosen one. Heaven uses hands like yours to sustain what its breath begins. Divine messages do not move through algorithms alone. They travel through obedience, through generosity, through hearts willing to participate. When you give, you're not funding words, you're fueling eternity. You're saying, "I believe this light should keep shining." There's a story heaven writes through every act of giving. When you sow into what blesses you, you don't lose, you multiply. Like the farmer who waters another's field only to find rain falling on his own. You can't pour into the divine and remain empty. Every seed you plant, whether digital or tangible, returns in peace, revelation, and unexpected favor. Think of it as tending a garden. Each click of engagement, each donation, each whisper of encouragement is a seed of obedience planted in good soil. The fruit may not grow overnight, but heaven sees the labor. What you nurture today becomes nourishment for souls tomorrow. So, when you hear this and your heart stirs, act from sincerity, not obligation. If a word here touched you, if heaven's echo found you when you needed it most, then let your gratitude become movement. Like, share, subscribe, yes, but do it as one tending the flame of truth. And if you feel led, donate not to a voice, but to a vision. That light continues to pierce through screens, finding those who are one whisper away from giving up. You are part of something holy, disguised as ordinary. Your click becomes a candle. Your support becomes sound. Together, we're building a choir of echoes, voices that keep heaven's message alive in a world desperate for hope. Chosen one. Don't underestimate the sacredness of small actions. Heaven measures not the size of your gift, but the sincerity behind it. When you move in generosity, whether through love, sharing, or giving, you mirror the heartbeat of God Himself. So, as heaven speaks again, respond with gratitude, with generosity, with focus. Don't let distraction win. The world needs what you've just heard, and you hold the power to pass it on. Let this word live beyond you. Let it breathe through your kindness, shine through your actions, multiply through your generosity, because every time you share, heaven's message takes flight again. And maybe, just maybe, the next soul who hears it will realize heaven has been repeating itself for them too. The battle between delay and destiny is fought in quiet places inside your thoughts, your routines, your moments of almost every chosen one faces this invisible war, where purpose calls from one side and hesitation whispers from the other. You stand in the middle, heart torn between faith and familiarity. The delay does not mean denial. It simply reveals the depth of your decision. Heaven's second message comes when you've spent too long circling the same mountain. You prayed for clarity, but clarity often exposes comfort zones. The reason heaven repeats itself is because destiny will not tolerate procrastination forever. The echo grows louder until movement becomes unavoidable. Chosen one, delay has a cost. It drains strength in silence. It dulls passion under routine. Every time you tell yourself, soon, heaven pauses the next miracle that was meant to meet your obedience. You don't lose the promise, you only lengthen the process. But even in delay, God's mercy remains. The repetition of the message is proof that grace still holds your place in line. Destiny, on the other hand, is time-sensitive. It breathes with divine rhythm. When heaven speaks, it does so according to seasons, not convenience. The first word often comes as invitation, the second comes as command. You may not realize it, but every act of obedience has timing attached to it. Miss the rhythm, and you miss the ripple. That's why heaven has returned with the same sound, because the moment has circled back, ready once more for your yes. There's a tension between your waiting and your walking, between what you hope for and what you must act on. Waiting feels safe. But destiny is not built in safety, it's forged in surrender. You are not being asked to understand every step, only to take the next one. That's why the same word keeps coming back. Heaven knows that destiny requires repetition until obedience becomes reflex. Chosen one. Delay feels comfortable because it disguises itself as preparation. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right moment, the right resources, the right sign. But often, the right moment begins the moment you move. Heaven does not ask for perfection, it asks for progress. The longer you delay, the heavier the spiritual weight becomes. Because your calling was never meant to sit dormant. You might not see the damage delay has done. It doesn't always destroy quickly, it erodes slowly. It numbs conviction. It teaches you to live with unfinished business. But heaven's echo is shattering that numbness now. The second message is not polite, it's powerful. It comes to break the spell of stagnation and restore the rhythm of destiny. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Elijah in the first book of Kings. Chapter 18, verse 21. How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him. Oh, heaven asks the same question of you now, not to shame you, but to shake you awake. The time for wavering is over. You've been standing at the crossroads too long, waiting for assurance when you were meant to move in faith. The second message is heaven's gentle yet firm push toward destiny's direction. Every delay has taught you something valuable. how to discern God's voice, how to endure silence, how to value clarity when it comes. Don't despise the waiting. It refined your ears to recognize this echo. But now, refinement must give way to response. What good is revelation if it never becomes realization? The tug you feel now isn't fear, it's gravity. Destiny pulls at those who belong to it. That's why, no matter how far you wander, you always end up back at the same word, the same calling, the same holy frustration. Heaven will not let go because your story is woven into something larger than yourself. Chosen one. This isn't about pressure, it's about promise. Delay has served its purpose. Now destiny must begin its work. The same voice that called you out of confusion is calling you into completion. You will no longer circle the same mountain. You will climb it. The air of delay is heavy, but the wind of obedience is freedom. The moment you move, heaven moves with you. Angels, timing, favor, all align. Once your steps align, you've been holding your breath in hesitation. Now heaven says, exhale. Take the step. Write the line. Speak the word. Begin. The second message wasn't sent to remind you where you failed. It came to reveal where you still can succeed. Heaven is offering you a restart, not a rebuke. Every delay that once drained you is being redeemed into divine momentum. So, rise. Chosen one. Let the sound of heaven's repetition become your rhythm again. Delay has met its end, and destiny is waiting to begin. This second message carries fire, not the gentle warmth of comfort, but the purifying flame of transformation. It burns through excuses, illuminates hidden corners, and melts the fear that has frozen your movement for too long. You can feel it, can't you? That unfamiliar heat rising in your spirit, that holy urgency pressing against your hesitation. Heaven isn't whispering this time, it's blazing. Chosen one. This is not the repetition of words, this is the repetition of power. The first message lit a spark. This one unleashes a wildfire. Heaven has waited long enough for you to believe what it already declared over you. This time, the flame won't fade. It will forge. The repetition of the word has turned into ignition, and your soul has become the altar. Every chosen one walks through this moment, the moment when hearing turns into burning. It's not about understanding anymore, it's about surrender. When heaven speaks twice, it's not just to remind you of destiny, it's to ignite it. You're standing in the middle of divine combustion, where revelation and obedience collide. The fire isn't coming to destroy you, it's coming to refine what was already chosen, as Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 12, verse 49. I have come to bring fire on the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. This second message burns because heaven refuses to let you live cold. Lukewarm hearts cannot carry divine assignments. The first call tested your hearing. This one tests your heat. Heaven is asking, will you let me set you ablaze again? Chosen one. There's something different about this moment. The flame that heaven has sent this time will not fade as it did before, because you are no longer made of the same material. The first word found you fragile. The second finds you fortified. You've walked through storms that made you unburnable to lesser fires. But now, the divine flame can rest on you without consuming you. Do not fear the intensity of what you feel right now. It's not emotional chaos, it's spiritual combustion. Heaven is burning away every layer of apathy, every residue of doubt, every shadow of hesitation. You are being refined until only obedience remains. You've prayed for clarity, but heaven answers with cleansing. You've asked for peace, but heaven sends power, because clarity without fire would leave you comfortable, and peace without passion would leave you passive. The second message carries both heat and holiness, demanding that you not only hear, but burn brightly. There's something sacred about fire. It doesn't need applause. It simply consumes what's placed upon it. You are that offering. You are the wood on heaven's altar. And just like Elijah on Mount Carmel, when you finally place all of yourself before God, the fire falls not as destruction, but as declaration that the Lord still answers by fire. This flame will not just touch your spirit, it will radiate into everything connected to you, your calling, your relationships, your work, your words. People will begin to sense it before you speak. The second message will mark you with divine heat that cannot be imitated. Chosen one. The moment has come to respond, not with logic, but with fire. Heaven is asking for visible alignment, a sign that your heart has caught flame. Right now, as you read this, let your spirit say yes in a way the unseen realm can witness. Type the number 555 inches. The comments, not as routine, but as recognition that heaven's flame has reached you. 5 is the number of grace, and tripled it becomes a divine declaration. Grace upon grace upon grace. By typing 555, you're saying, I receive the fire of grace not to destroy me, but to develop me. You're acknowledging that this second message hasn't just been heard, it's been absorbed. When you write it, do it with reverence. Feel the weight of what you're declaring. You're not responding to words on a screen. You're responding to heaven's flame touching your life again. The same fire that once descended on prophets, that transformed shepherds into kings, is now being offered to you, not because you are perfect, but because you are chosen. And from this moment on, you will not move in lukewarm faith again. The repetition of heaven's message has turned into revelation. The fire has fallen, and what once felt like pressure now feels like power. Type 555 if you feel it. This is not coincidence, it's combustion. The message didn't just return to speak, it returned to set you ablaze. Mercy's final knock is never loud. It comes softly through conviction, through memory, through the quiet sense that time is shifting and grace is leaning close. Heaven's tone changes when mercy reaches its last invitation. It's not harsh, but it carries weight. You can feel it deep inside, as though the universe itself pauses, waiting for your answer. Chosen one. There is a tenderness in heaven's persistence. God never forces, he invites. But when he repeats, he is not only reminding you, he is rescuing you. The second message is mercy's final echo. Heaven's way of saying, you still have time, but not forever. It's not fear that drives this urgency, it's love that refuses to lose you. In the stillness, you might sense both comfort and conviction at once. That's how mercy feels. It comforts your wounds while confronting your wandering. Heaven knows how fragile your heart can be, how easily distractions disguise themselves as peace. So mercy knocks again, not to condemn, but to correct the path before it's too late. The voice of God thundered in the book of Genesis, chapter 6, verse 3. My spirit shall not strive with man forever. Now, those words still tremble across eternity, not as a threat, but as a truth. Grace is infinite in its source, but limited in its season. Heaven's patience is deep, but not without direction. When mercy knocks a final time, it's because heaven sees what your eyes cannot, the moment approaching where choices become consequences. Chosen one. This is not meant to frighten you, it's meant to awaken you. The same mercy that warned Noah of the flood, that whispered to Lot before the fire, that wept over Jerusalem before its fall, this same mercy now visits you. The repetition of the message is heaven's way of making sure you cannot say, "I didn't know." Note, there's still time, but not for indifference. The door of grace remains open, but it is not a revolving one. You cannot keep walking in and out of conviction and expect the same clarity to remain. Each time you resist, the echo grows dimmer, not because heaven grows weaker, but because your heart grows harder. Mercy knocks, but it will not break the door down. You may remember moments in your life when you felt this same pull before those crossroads, when you sensed heaven's presence so near it made you tremble. Maybe you ignored it then, telling yourself you'd answer later. And yet, here you are again, feeling the same divine pressure. That's not coincidence. That's mercy, returning for what it began. Mercy always circles back before it closes. The chapter, God is too kind to let you drift without warning. That's why you're reading this now. This is not just another message. It's heaven's way of extending your window one more time. The repetition is not proof of your failure, it's proof of His faithfulness. Heaven is not angry, it's urgent. The Spirit is not frustrated, it's faithful. But there will come a time when silence replaces sound, when the knocking ceases because the door has finally closed. Not out of cruelty, but out of completion. That is why heaven speaks again. Right now, while your heart is still soft enough to hear, chosen one, do not confuse delay with disinterest. Heaven has waited patiently for you to respond. But mercy is not eternal in opportunity, it is eternal in intention. Once the call has been answered, grace transforms into glory. But until it's answered, it remains on knock, gentle yet relentless. This moment, this very breath is an intersection between mercy and movement. You are standing where heaven has paused, time for your awareness. Don't rush through it. Let the weight of it settle. The message is not here to shame you, it's here to save you from another cycle of hesitation. The sound of mercy's knock carries both sorrow and song. Sorrow for those who delay, song for those who decide. Heaven's door is still open, and the second call is still sounding. But doors don't stay open forever. They close when the fullness of time has come. Right now, that door stands before you, not as judgment, but as joy waiting to happen. All heaven needs is your response, your recognition that mercy's voice is worth obeying. If you can still feel conviction, then grace is still working. If your heart still stirs when heaven calls, then the door is still open. Mercy has not passed you by, it has found you again. Listen to that final knock. Chosen one. It doesn't come from anger, but from affection. It says, you still matter enough for heaven to speak again. Let that awareness settle deep within you. For the moment you open your heart, mercy doesn't knock anymore. It moves in. The reward of obedience rarely arrives, wrapped in brilliance. It often comes quietly, disguised as peace. It doesn't always look like fireworks or applause. It looks like alignment. The second you obey, even in something small, heaven exhales in your direction. The storms within you begin to still. The tension in your chest loosens. And suddenly, everything around you starts to make sense. That is how the reward of obedience feels, not loud, but luminous. Chosen one. Obedience is the language of heaven. It speaks louder than prayer, deeper than sacrifice, and clearer than talent. When you obey, you translate divine will into human action. It's where spirit meets skin, where unseen instructions become tangible outcomes. The reward of obedience is not only in what you receive, but in what you become. You might not realize it yet, but every time you say yes to God, something invisible shifts. Doors that were once sealed begin to tremble. Pathways hidden by confusion begin to unfold. Obedience doesn't always bring instant results, but it always brings divine recognition. Heaven records every act of surrender, no matter how small, and releases blessings in ways you could never have orchestrated yourself. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." Again, that is the hidden promise behind obedience. Nothing you surrender is wasted. Every delay, every tear, every test becomes raw material for glory. When you obey, heaven doesn't just reward you, it rebuilds you. Chosen one. Maybe you once believed that obedience was hard because it required sacrifice. But now you see it's the other way around. Disobedience costs more. Obedience may cost you comfort, but disobedience costs you clarity. One brings pruning, the other brings pressure. One hurts your pride, the other hurts your purpose. The fire of obedience burns briefly, but the cold of rebellion lingers. The reward of obedience is peace, the kind that doesn't make sense. It's the feeling of being exactly where you're meant to be. Even if you don't yet see the outcome, it's waking up knowing heaven is pleased. Even if the world isn't impressed. The reward is not always visible provision. Sometimes it's invisible protection. God's yes may not give you everything you want, but it shields you from everything you don't need. Remember this, obedience never leaves you poorer, even when it feels like loss. It's really redirection. When Abraham left his homeland, it looked like sacrifice, but it was set up. When Moses obeyed at the Red Sea, it looked like impossibility, but it was invitation. When Mary said yes to the angel, it looked like scandal, but it was salvation. The pattern has never changed. Obedience always carries hidden glory. You've been conditioned by the world to seek results, but heaven rewards relationship. Every act of obedience strengthens intimacy with the one who speaks. The more you obey, the more clearly you hear. The more you hear, the more boldly you move. Eventually, obedience stops feeling like obligation and starts feeling like instinct. It becomes your language, your rhythm, your resting place. Sometimes, the reward of obedience isn't what you gain, it's what you lose. Fear, confusion, exhaustion, false attachments. Heaven removes the unnecessary so you can breathe again. You may not even notice it at first. You'll just realize that what once drained you no longer does. That's the silent miracle of alignment. And even when obedience leads you through unfamiliar terrain, you are never alone in it. God's presence doesn't wait at the finish line. It walks beside the faithful. The same voice that commands you also comforts you. The same fire that tests you also lights your path. Every yes you give releases more light ahead. Chosen one. Heaven doesn't measure obedience by perfection. It measures it by willingness. The smallest step of faith moves more in heaven than a lifetime of hesitation. You don't have to understand everything to begin. You just have to trust that obedience opens what analysis cannot. And when you finally see the reward, when peace floods your heart and purpose flows like a river, you'll understand why heaven repeated the call. You'll realize that every repetition, every test, every delay was only shaping you into someone who could carry the weight of the blessing. The second message didn't come to remind you of rules, it came to reveal the reward. And now you stand in the afterglow of obedience, stronger, freer, more aligned than ever before. The path ahead will not always be easy, but it will always be guided. You have stepped into a current that carries you where striving never could. The heavens rejoice, not because you were perfect, but because you finally said yes. The second call to subscribe is not a marketing echo, it is a divine reminder to stay connected to what awakens your spirit. Chosen one. You've walked through so many voices that tried to confuse you, yet here you are, still drawn back to the sound that feels like home, the voice that reminds you who you are. This message is not entertainment, it's alignment. When heaven repeats itself, it's building a bridge between revelation and relationship. The truth is, no one walks this journey alone. Even prophets needed community. Even fire needed an altar to rest on. Connection is the oxygen of faith. When you stay connected to the Word, to truth, to the flow of divine messages, you remain under the reign of revelation. The world grows colder each day, but heaven keeps sending warmth through voices, stories, and reminders like this one. The Apostle Paul writes in the letter to the Galatians, chapter 6, verse 9, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due time we will reap if we endure." That's the essence of this call to rise and shine together, to refuse isolation, to stand as a constellation of souls reflecting heaven's glow. When you like, share, or subscribe, you're not boosting numbers, you're building a network of light. You're saying, "I will not let this word die in me. I will let it live through me." End of quote. Every chosen one has two missions, to receive light and to release it. When you listen here, heaven pours into you. When you act, when you share, support, comment, or give, heaven pours through you. This flow must continue. Like rivers feeding oceans, when the flow stops, the water stagnates. When the message moves, the world begins to heal. So, yes, I invite you gently, sincerely to sow into this stream. Maybe it's a comment that shares how this word found you. Maybe it's a simple act of support, a like that keeps the message visible for the one who needs it next. Maybe it's a donation, a seed, small or large, that tells heaven, "Keep this light burning. Let the message continue." And when you give, you're not funding a person, you're fueling a purpose. You're adding oil to the lamps that reach souls sitting in their own midnight. Like the widow in the story of Elijah, your offering may seem small, but heaven sees its size in spirit, not in currency. The miracle of her oil wasn't in its quantity, but in its willingness to be poured. Think of this space as a table built by heaven. Every listener who joins brings something, a word, a prayer, a moment of attention, a gift, and together we form communion. This isn't a transaction, it's transformation through participation. The reason the world feels empty is because too many listen but too few engage. The Spirit moves when hearts connect, when voices blend, when people choose to keep light alive. Your like is a candle, your share is a doorway, your comment is a heartbeat, your donation is oil that keeps the lamp steady in wind. Each act, no matter how small, becomes part of the divine rhythm, keeping this fire burning. Chosen one. Never underestimate how much your agreement matters. The words you read here are seeds, but seeds need soil. You are that soil. The more you engage, the deeper the roots of revelation grow. And one day, those roots will blossom into something greater than this message, a movement of light that stretches beyond your screen, into your family, your city, your generation. There is a story being written through you right now. You are not a spectator. You are a sentence in heaven's unfolding paragraph. Your act of connection adds another line to the testimony being told across nations. That light still speaks, that heaven still moves, that hearts are still awakening. So, when you interact, when you share, subscribe, or support, you're not helping a voice. You're amplifying heavens. You're taking the echo and letting it travel farther than algorithms ever could. Because the real power is not in platforms, it's in people who choose to carry the message forward. Let this message be a mirror. See yourself in it, not as a follower, but as a flame bearer. You've been called again because heaven trusts you with its echo. The same word that reached you through a screen will now reach others through you. So go ahead, comment your reflection. Share your spark. Subscribe to stay in the flow. Sow your seed of support. If you feel led, do it as worship, as gratitude, as participation in a movement of light. Because every act of connection says, the light is still burning, and every time someone else joins, heaven whispers again. The chosen ones are still listening. Lee, crowned for remembering those words, sound simple, yet they carry the weight of eternity. To remember is to honor. To remember is to prove that what heaven said did not fade with time. The crown does not come to the fastest, the loudest, or the most visible. It comes to the ones who remembered those who kept the echo alive long after the world grew silent. Chosen one. This crown isn't made of gold or jewels. It's made of moments, every quiet act of obedience, every tear you turned into worship, every time you chose faith over fear. The world might not have seen those moments, but heaven did. Each one became a thread woven into a crown that only fits those who endured. To remember is to keep the word alive in you. The first message lit your fire. The second confirmed your calling. But this remembering, this living in alignment, is what finishes the story. You're not crowned for hearing. You're crowned for holding, for carrying what God said through seasons that tried to erase it. Memory in the kingdom of heaven is not nostalgia, it's faithfulness. It's when your spirit says, I still believe, even when evidence fades. Heaven crowns those who remember, because remembrance means trust survived the test of time. The Apostle James writes in his letter, chapter 1, verse 12, Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial. For they will receive the crown of life from God. That is what this moment means. You've stood the test. You didn't quit when silence stretched longer than expected. You didn't curse the waiting. You didn't despise the repetition. You let heaven speak again. And this time, you listened not with impatience, but with gratitude. That shift changed everything. Chosen one. Your endurance is worship. It tells heaven that its word found good soil in you. While others treated revelation as an event, you treated it as a vow. You didn't rush to the next new sound. You stayed faithful to the one already given. That's what remembering really is, staying in covenant with a word until it becomes flesh. The crown doesn't symbolize perfection, it symbolizes perseverance. It says, this one didn't give up. Every time you chose stillness over doubt, you were earning invisible jewels of trust. Every time you refused to abandon what God said, heaven was shaping your reward. The world glorifies beginnings, but heaven celebrates consistency. Anyone can start with fire, but only the faithful still burn after the storm. You have been tested not in your calling, but in your remembering. The second message wasn't to test your hearing, it was to test your holding, and you have held. The reward that awaits you is not just in heaven, it begins now. Peace that surpasses understanding, confidence that cannot be shaken, discernment that cuts through deception. All of these are the early jewels of your crown. You wear them invisibly, even now. And the world feels it without knowing why. People see your calm and call it strength, but heaven calls it remembrance. Chosen one. Remembering is not passive, it's power. It keeps the past promise alive in the present until it manifests in the future. When you remember, you stand in agreement with every word God has spoken over your life. And that agreement keeps heaven's plans active. Forgetting is how destinies fade. Remembering is how they stay eternal. Every time you repeat His words, heaven hears worship. Every time you rehearse His promise, angels take note. Every time you recall His faithfulness, your atmosphere shifts. This is why heaven crowns rememberers, because remembrance fuels movement. There will be days when the voice of the world grows louder than the whisper of heaven. In those moments, reach back into memory. Recall the time He spoke, the moment He confirmed, the season He carried you. Memory will anchor you when the winds of uncertainty rise. You are crowned not for arriving first, but for refusing to leave. The glory of this season isn't in what you gain, but in who you've become, a keeper of words, a guardian of promises, a living altar that holds the fire of divine repetition. Heaven's echo no longer comes to chase you, it comes to crown you. The message has found its resting place in your heart. You are no longer waiting for the voice, you are the voice that carries it. And as you walk forward now, every step is radiant with the weight of remembrance. You have proven faithful through repetition. The crown fits perfectly because you have grown into it. Chosen one. This is your coronation in silence, the moment heaven whispers, well done. You remembered. Oh, the second word becomes final glory. This is where repetition transforms into revelation, fulfilled, where the echo that once stirred becomes the anthem that crowns. Heaven no longer repeats itself to remind you, it repeats to rejoice. The sound that once called you out of delay now celebrates that you made it through. What began as instruction now stands as inheritance. Chosen one. You've journeyed through every tone. Heaven could speak gentle whispers. fierce commands, tender warnings, burning fire. Now the sound shifts again. It no longer instructs your steps. It confirms your standing. You are no longer just called, you are commissioned. The repetition was never about your weakness. It was about your preparation. Heaven speaks twice when destiny is about to speak through you. This is that moment. The echo becomes embodiment. You are not only the listener of the word, you are now the living proof of it. Every message heaven repeated has found flesh in you. Every divine reminder has written itself across your character, your choices, your courage. You have become the very message that once pursued you. In the book of Revelation, chapter 2, verse 10, it is written, "Be faithful, even to the point of death, and I will give you life as your victor's crown." And that's the heart of this section. You are entering the realm of completion, where obedience turns into overflow. The victor's crown isn't given for perfection, it's given for perseverance. You stayed through the silence. You endured through the stretching. You believed again when believing felt foolish. That is victory in heaven's language. There's a holy stillness that comes after divine repetition. It's not emptiness, it's establishment. Heaven no longer needs to shout because you've learned to hear the whisper. You've grown from needing reminders to being one. Every place you go, every word you speak, now carries that same resonance. Heaven used to reach you. You've become an echo yourself, an instrument through which heaven continues to speak. You may not notice it yet, but others will. They will feel something different when you enter a room, not because you're perfect, but because you carry presence. The same presence that hovered when the message first came now walks with you. You've been refined into a vessel of continuity, heaven's echo, wearing human form, chosen one. This is what it means to be glorified in obedience. Glory is not applause, it's alignment. It's when every fragment of who you are finally agrees with what heaven said. Your mind no longer argues. Your heart no longer fears. Your steps no longer wander. Everything inside you moves to the rhythm of divine will. The second word has now completed its purpose. It found you hesitant and left you holy. It found you questioning and left you certain. It entered as a call and exits as a crown. The repetition was not a cycle, it was a circle. And you have finally come full circle. There's a beauty in this arrival. The struggle you once resented now becomes sacred memory. The delays that once frustrated you now appear as divine choreography. You can finally see that every hesitation, every heartbreak, every repetition was heaven carving resilience into your soul. The second message didn't come to torment you, it came to transform you into someone who could carry glory without pride. You are no longer chasing signs. Signs will begin to follow you. The voice that once found you in confusion will now flow through you to others who stand where you once stood. You are the continuation of the conversation between heaven and earth. The glory that rests on you now isn't the loud, fleeting type the world gives. It's quiet glory, the kind that sits in your eyes, the kind that radiates through peace. It's the weightless strength of knowing you've obeyed, heaven's echo, that obedience has become your armor, and remembrance your crown. This glory is not the end, it's the beginning of usefulness. Heaven doesn't crown to conclude it, crowns to commission. The echo that once called you will now call through you. Where once you trembled at the voice, now you carry its tone. Heaven's rhythm beats within your chest. Chosen one. This is the completion of repetition. The sound has done its work. The seed has grown into flame. The message that once chased you now walks beside you. You have moved from being the audience of heaven's echo to being its amplifier. This is the place of final glory, the point where the word no longer needs to repeat because it has become reality. You are the living fulfillment of what heaven once whispered twice. You are proof that divine persistence never returns void. Now heaven rests, satisfied, because the echo has become a voice. The word has become flesh. The promise has become presence. You have become the continuation of the divine story, a vessel filled, a crown secured, a light unveiled. And as heaven looks upon you, there is silence, not the silence of absence, but the silence of completion. The mission of repetition is over. Glory has taken its place. The sound fades, but the message lives. Heaven has spoken twice, and this time it found its home in you. The journey from calling to crowning has ended, yet the story continues through your hands, your heart, your voice. You are now the echo that keeps heaven's words alive on earth. So, chosen one, if this message reached you, if it stirred something deep, if it reminded you of your worth, if it rekindled your flame, don't let it stop here. Let your gratitude become movement. Like this message, so it shines brighter for others still wandering in silence. Share it as a seed of light into someone else's darkness. Leave a comment. Tell heaven what part touched you most. Every word you write becomes a ripple that reaches another searching soul. And if your spirit longs to stay in this flow of divine alignment, subscribe and walk with this growing circle of awakened hearts. Together, we are not just listeners, we are carriers of light, keepers of the echo. Let's make sure heaven's voice never fades again.